our podcast that we're about to do. So just bear with me for another minute. While you're up and open, go ahead and ask any questions that you have. I'm going to go ahead and go to the YouTube site and make sure that we're all checked and ready to go for this evening. Um, you can obviously see I have a lot of hair stuff here and a lot of a lot of radio show stuff. But let me make sure that I am ready. Make sure I'm all mic'd up. Give me a moment. Okay. All right. Looks like I'm all live here. Let's see who is online right now. I have to sing everything, obviously. All right. So I think we are pretty much good to go. I see WV Watson in here. Thank you so much. Uh, Give me one moment. I'm just trying to make sure that you guys can hear me. You guys can see me. Everything's good to go. Okay. So, all right. So tonight on Watch Curtis Code, we're going to go ahead and begin promptly. Let me go to my Sublime text editor. Now, what you all can see is the synopsis for episodes 2 and episode 3. Now, I'm going to try to keep this under a half an hour, which means we're going to we're going to end around 7:35. That way, it's not super long like the first one. I mean, I had a lot of lessons learned. First thing is that really people don't have the time span for it. They don't have that much time. So I'm going to try to keep these concise as possible. I call the first 15 minutes kind of the treat, and the first 15 minutes today, I wanted to talk about assembling your team, how to wrangle a developer like myself, or how to at least be in service to one while he helps to build your product. For minutes 16 through 30, I want to talk about coding the UI table view cell for our app that we're building, and we're live coding, which is called LineSnake. So it's just something to look forward to. I wanted to make sure that we got to the things that were more common in the very beginning and left the more esoteric and more code centric things till the last half of this particular podcast. So without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. So let's talk a little bit about assembling your team. Give me a moment, real quick. And also feel free to, ask questions while I go on, my little spiel here. First of all, let's talk a little bit about, building your team in general. In order to really be good at this, I'm talking about to compete at the highest levels where VCs are coming to you, or you're able to get that number one customer that's a Fortune 100 client like Apple or Google or any of these kind of huge companies, and you're building a product to impress them or to get their money or their sales in any way. You have to have the right team, meaning that you have to have all the right pieces of the puzzle there in order to succeed. And the crucial part, especially if you're building a startup project, is going to be your developer. Now, how do you find a good developer? I mean, that's a huge air quotes moment. Well, there's just no real fundamental way other than seeing their work previously. If they worked for one of these big companies like Google or Apple and Facebook, any of these companies, they may have a really different point of view on how to build software. It may be very regimented. It may be very structured in the way that they execute your approach. So there's nothing wrong with that. And those people, once they get in Apple, Google, Facebook, any Amazon, any of these companies, they're looking to stay there for a good amount of time because they could be out building their own software product and launching it to the masses, but they chose to go work for a company, which I think there's something honorable about that too. Um, that being said, what you want to do in order to attract those kind of high tier developers, I'm talking specifically to those folks that are trying to nab a genius programmer, so to speak. Um, those folks are kind of few and far between as far as coders to come by, unless you have the actual money to start paying folks high dollar rates in order to build your app. So, what can you do in the meantime? How do you get someone that is capable and also is very consistent? Well, fortunately, in the Bay Area, we have more developers than you can. I mean, you throw a rock, you'll hit a developer, as my friend Scott Hanselman says. There's just so much culture here that is geared towards the developer, especially on the enterprise and for any company out there that's really trying to succeed in software. Um, to try to nab one of those folks is hard, but it's not impossible. A few tips that I have is number one, make yourself available. That means doing all the hard stuff, going to meetups, meeting developers that are looking for a great idea that they can execute on. Very often, what happens is developers are very confident in their skills. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm a developer. There's just, we always try to think. It's kind of like those folks that they see a hammer and they have a hammer and they want to nail everything, right? They want to be able to build their developers want to be able to build their world um, out of software, and that's just the truth. So trying to get those folks is, like I said, it's not impossible, but you have to make yourself available to go to those meetups, to meet people, to connect with people. That doesn't mean come off as a sales guy where you're trying to pitch them on your idea. That means becoming friends first, knowing what they do, being curious about how they execute software, being curious about what they're working on right now. They may have something in the works, but is it worth it to find someone and not be able to jump right into your project? Absolutely. In fact, I encourage it. Many times, folks are so bent on their idea that they don't want to bend in the way of letting a developer kind of exercise and flex his muscles as far as the project he wants to build. Believe it or not, even though he's a developer, he may still be missing that vital component to make it a success. He may be missing a business guy. He may be missing a finance guy. He may be missing a great designer to make his software really pop and to make it connect with people, millions of people. Be of service. Because you have different skill sets, those are the things that can really help you to build a firm collaboration in the way that a lot of these great teams have been created in the past by just trying and seeing what sticks, what works. It's a lot like starting a band. You have a guy who does the drums really well, you have a guitarist, you have a singer, and you have a bassist. They all come together and they make music, they make harmony, and it appeals to everyone. That's much the same way that you have to put your team together to do a startup. Now, when you start a band, you don't have the greatest guitarist in the world. You don't have the greatest bassist. You don't have the greatest drummer either. But what you guys produce together can really be special. It can really be a collaboration that speaks to people. And that's the kind of thing that you're talking about here. Let's take a second. I want to take a beat. I want to look at some of these questions here that we have. Let me go to the stream. I just want to make sure I'm ready if there are any questions. Give me 1 second. Maybe I just go here. Maybe not. I'm not going to worry about it. I see the chat window here, so I want to. Okay. I think we're good to go on who's watching. As you can see, there's only one person watching right now. I'm not worried about that. I'm doing this because I know a lot of folks are busy. It's 7 o'clock on a Monday night. Some people just aren't back home yet. They're doing other things. But uh, let's get back to snagging a developer, wrangling a developer that fits what you don't have in your skill set. Um, One of the key things that developers are looking for is they're looking for someone to complete the picture, meaning that they're looking for people that don't exactly mirror their talents. A good developer would be great, but they're looking for people that can really sing and really can shine in their own way, so that you guys can build a real collaborative environment or a really collaborative product. So keep those things in mind. One of my other second little, I guess they're pro tips here at this point. One of the things that I always tell people when they're saying, I can't find a developer, I can't find anyone to execute on what I'm doing. And my only answer to that is that sometimes you have to go and get coffee or tea for a developer. Developers are busy people. They are busy just like you are. In order for them to stop what they're doing and work with you on what your dream app is or your dream product is, they're giving up something else. There's something else that they are ignoring for the moment. So keep that in mind. Now, what can you do in that circumstance? Well, maybe you say, hey, look, let's grab a coffee. I'm up the street from your office. Let's grab a coffee. Let's go to tea. Let's have lunch. These are things that people have to do no matter what. Or maybe you take the same mode of transportation home. Maybe you say, well, hey, can I connect with you on the BART? What time do you catch it? Finding these little moments where you can really connect and convince someone to work on your app. These are things that are going to sell developers on whether they should stop what they're doing and work on your product. So those are just a few things that you can do to really wrangle a developer. As far as where to connect with developers, there's tons of sites out there like Elance, there's Upwork, there's a lot of other sites where you can directly hire a developer if you have the funds to do so. Now, your mileage may vary, so keep in mind, in order to test these folks, you're going to have to give them a sample project to build, hopefully nothing huge, but something simple to build so that you know that they have the aptitude to carry through on what you guys are about to do. So we'll come back to that later on in the series of these videos that I'm going to talk about, because there's just a lot of things and there's just not a lot of time to go into every single detail. But if you do have questions, feel free to email me after the show. My information is always here on YouTube, or even connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Curtis with 2 S's, last name Pope. And also on Instagram, I'm Curtis Pope, CurtisPope. So without further ado, we're going to actually get into our app building. So today we have we're going to start off by trying to build this particular view, okay? Remember, our app called LineSnake that we started last week, it has this main view, which is a list of all the different signings, the different autograph sessions that artists are going to be doing during the convention, during the event that's going to take place. So right off the bat, you see we have Jim Lee. It's a little blocked by this little deal here. You have Jim Lee, which is a huge comic book artist. And then you have Rob Liefeld, another huge comic book artist, then another one. And the reason why there's so many in this little graphic here is so that we know what the different states and modes are for the different, let's call them, just states that a signing will go through. First, it'll be wide open, where it'll say, well, there's 30% full, but there's 34 spots left. Maybe it is closing in 6 hours, so you have a little bit of time to sign up or reserve your spot in that line. And then you have some that have already been closed, so it may be on that date or during that time, and it's closed now, so you don't really have an opportunity. But we want you to know that it did exist and there was an actual signing. The other two that we have here are kind of variable. I'm not sure if we should include these or not, but as we go along, we'll figure out what the true voice of this is going to be. The first of the variable ones here is one that says it's opening in 2 hours and 34 minutes. Now, these are ones that people can kind of look forward to. So if they're looking for San Diego Comic-Con, they can see that there is a line for Arthur Adams signing, but it hasn't opened yet. So in 2 hours, they'll get an alert that says the line is open, go ahead and sign up and reserve your spot in line. The other one that says, okay, this is a little bit out there, but this is for the event. Now, this right here is something where essentially I'm going to have to make this look completely different from these previous ones. And I've already started to do that. As you can see, there's a description here, but there's not really much that differentiates it other than that it's a verified event here. So we'll come back to this later on, but for now, let's just focus on building this one particular little qubit here. And we'll pick this one instead of that Jim Lee signing. And our goal today is to just build this thing in real time. So it shouldn't take very long. In fact, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's go ahead and open up Xcode. And as you can see, I've already started to kind of put it together in our sample project. And I'll show it to you right now, if I can. Remember last week we had a little bit of issues here. But let's open it up in our pre-LS. Yeah, works fine. And so this is kind of a rough version of what we're going to create. But I created all this stuff in code. So we can see exactly how things are going to shape up in just a moment. So now let's open up the project that we started last week. Maybe because I'm in Simulator. Open recent, line snake, and you'll see that the view is just completely different. So we're going to constantly refer to our sketch file. The first value that we're going to get is we're going to know how big is this exact cell, this piece, this container here that contains all the data. Now over to our right, we see that it has a height of 105 and a width of 375. We don't care about the width so much because it's going to shape and fit the size of the device that we're on, and we're going to make sure of that in just a moment. So we're going to concentrate on just the height right now. So I'm going to write that down on my notepad, and as you can see, I've written it down previously because I was working in the demo project to show you folks what we're going to be working on. So I have that value. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at each one of my little components that are inside of that container, and I'm going to see what values and positions it has. So the first little label here has a depth or an x coordinate of 14 and then 22 pixels down, and it has a height of 20. We don't have to worry about the height of it so much because we'll make sure that it's in the right height. The second one is going to be the same coordinate for the x, and we're going to note down it's at a 45 y coordinate. And then for our final one, it's at a 72. Let's not forget our date label here, and it's at a 6, okay? And so it's at a y coordinate of 6, and it's still the same depth. We're at 14 pixels in, so 14 pixels from this edge in, okay? So now we have our values. I just wrote them down real quickly, and I'm just going to hop back into Xcode. I'm going to make a few little changes just to make our lives easier. Let me hide the code for now. I don't know what's happening right now. So, okay. So I'm going to make this 105. I'm going to not fat finger it. I'm going to make it 105 as my row height. Okay. Let me make sure my table view knows before so I'm going to make it 105, and that will be the true height of whatever row that I have in this table view. So since this is still holding the values from last week where I just had a maybe I could show you. In our line snake tutorial last week, we just had one value which actually used the default text label there, and we had a Jim Lee signing. Okay, so this is as plain Jane as you can get it. This week we're going to turn it up a little. We're going to get it to this state or close to it in this half an hour or 8 minutes we have left. So I got to code fast. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop a label into my table view cell. And let me just copy this thing like crazy. Control C, Command C, Command V. And I'm going to do something else here where I'm going to select all of them. And then I'm going to make sure the position is right. So they're all 14 from the left here. And get this top one here. That would help. 14. And they're all at different positions. And we're going to adjust that later on. But for now, let's dive right into the code. That way we don't have to delay. Okay? So let me make this as easy as possible for you to look at. Whoop. Okay. So we already know how many rows this thing has. And what we're going to do here, one more step that we forgot, or I forgot rather, is I need to give these labels a tag. And the tag is just going to help me to identify which particular label I'm working with at the moment. So in our inspector over here, once we've selected a label, which is part of our UI over here, we can go right down here and we can see a tag. And I like to begin my labels with the 100. So it'll go 100, 100, 101, 102, 103. So let's do that. 100, 101, 102, and 103. Okay? Make our lives a little bit easier. That way we can tell it exactly which label tag that we're going to use. Okay? So last week we used this one particular label here, the cell text label, which is by default what's in there. So we'll go ahead and comment that line out. The next thing we'll do is we'll start off by saying, okay, let's tell it exactly what these labels are. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, now I'm going to say let label or LBL date equal view dot view with tag. And remember, we added the tag, so this first one's going to be 100 because that's at the top. And or that was our first one. Let's copy that, and we'll just paste the heck out of this thing. Oh, got a little paste happy there. And we're going to name this one our title, and then this one will be the event, and then this one will be, let's see, what was that? It will be the status. We'll name that the status. Okay. And 100, 101, 102, 103. Okay. So we have all of our labels defined. It's a little sloppy here. Let's make this nice and neat. Okay, so now we know what those 4 labels are. Now let's start to fill them up with information, then we'll test, okay? So let's put in LBL date is going to dot text. One thing I did forget to do was declare that this was actually going to be a UI label. UI label. Tell you, even people that have done this a million times a day, we forget. So let's go ahead and make sure that it knows exactly what kind of object this is. So it is a label. We'll put a colon label. And no, we're not going to do anything. An odd error here. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. We should actually just do it like this. As UI label. There we go. And I think we're going to be good. Copy that and paste it. Paste it. What's going on? Okay. And we will go and clean this up sometime later. But now let's go ahead and specify the values. Put a comment here. Oop. I didn't know how to spell. You gotta forgive me, I'm a little nervous because I know we're running out of time. We've got 3 minutes over. I'm trying to make sure that I fit in the time that I specified, guys. So you'll have to forgive me. I won't be upset if you drop off. But we're going to go ahead and code through because we want to get this just right. So we'll get it to a working version of this, okay? So we're going to start by saying, okay, what do we want our date to be? LBL date dot text equals July 19th. Oops, I'll quote it up. July 19th through 2016. Okay, and these are all going to be strings, so I'm just going to kind of fudge them here. So we got 4, and we're going to go ahead and say, okay, for the title, we're going to make this Jim Lee signing, and for the event, this is going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. '16, not 2012. And the final one, I believe, was the status. And we'll just say it is 30% full, 34 spots left. Okay, so we'll go from there, and from here I think we are all set. So let's go ahead and test this out. Let's just make it iPhone 6. Give it a shot in our build. Build succeeded. Okay, so we can see it's actually there, but let's make sure that this thing, like I said, it's going to fit the device that we want it to fit. So we're at 7:30. Let's go ahead and, since we have a few minutes, let's just go ahead and space these bad boys out. We'll go ahead and select all of them. Boom. And we'll give them all equal widths. So let's say they are 375. We'll just kind of statically put them in there. Actually, so 600. And then what we're going to do, 600 minus 14, that's 586. 586. We want them to go right up to the border's edge. Then what we're going to do is we're going to have this go right to the edge here, and we're going to constrain it to be adaptable to the width of the device here. So we're going to add some constraints to those labels. And now we should be in good hands. Let's try that once more. And I know we statically put in those values. As you can see, it all showed up just fine. We got each one of those, but we're going to have to do some formatting, and so we're going to leave that to our next video, episode 3. And if not, what I can do is in between these videos, I'll do a little round just to kind of show you guys. That way you guys don't have to wait all the way till next Monday for this. So I'm going to try to put this up by Friday, okay? So I want to thank you guys once again for watching me code and just kind of checking me out. I mean, this is all new for me. I'm really kind of aiming to please, and I look forward to many, many more sessions like this. And if you can, please tell a friend. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm at Curtis Pope. And also hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. I'm not on Snapchat yet, but it's like what the young people are doing these days. So I might show up there too, just to kind of promote this thing. So check me out next week as you watch me code. Thank you for watching. Watch Curtis Code again.